Hi there, I am Jessica, and today we are going to be talking about building your unique fictional settings and building your atmospheres from aspects of the real world. So let's get started. So first, let's talk about what is setting? What does that even mean? So setting is the time and the place in which the story takes place. So when is it and where is it physically? So when you're building your setting, some important considerations are the time period. So is it modern? Is it medieval, Renaissance? When is it happening? The time of day, the time of year. So the season, is it summer? Is it winter? The geographic region, that's going to play really important in building your world and building your setting. And then for each scene, or primarily for your story as a whole, are you inside or outside? Those are just a few things to take into account, and grounding your reader in the setting as early on in your story as possible is really going to help them not, figuratively, not let them wander around in your world lost. We want to get them started, get them in the story, set the scene, get them grounded so that they can then go on this journey with us without wondering, where the heck am I? So those are some important considerations for setting. And now let's talk about atmosphere. So setting is when and where the story takes place. Atmosphere is the feelings and the emotions that are evoked by the setting. So while these two play into each other, they are different. And how is atmosphere built? It's built through the setting, through the imagery you use, through the point of view the story is being told from, through the diction, and through a bunch of other stuff. This is the vibes. This is the aesthetic of the book. And excuse me, something important that I want to note here is when you hear people talking about what mood does your setting evoke, that's different than atmosphere. Mood is internal. It's built from characterization mostly. Atmosphere is physically, what does your world feel like? Is it gloomy? Is it bright? Is it happy? It's the physical feeling of your story. Whereas mood is going to be more the emotional feeling. So now that we have got that out of the way, we can find atmosphere and setting and inspiration for those things all around us. It really is anywhere that you look. So I'm in my living room right now, and if I really wanted to, and we'll talk about this later, I could use this as a fantasy setting, as a place for my scene to take place. A bar you frequent, a street downtown, a really cool sculpture, a forest by your house, a lighthouse by your house. Anything that you are seeing in real life can be turned into a fantasy setting and can be used to build your atmosphere. You just have to look at it through different eyes. So we'll talk about a few ways how to kind of get into that sense of looking at real world things through a fantasy lens, and then we'll do a little workshop and try it ourselves. Okay, so one of the first ways to really help you get your own understanding of your setting and your atmosphere is to build mood boards. I usually do these as I am working on writing the story. It helps me at that stage. You can do it at any stage you want. I make my mood boards on Pinterest and in Canva primarily, but it really just helps me figure out the vibes of my story before I get into it and start. My cat is going to come say hi here in just a second, so I'm sorry. Mood boards are really helpful if you you're a visual person. A lot of writers I've noticed are visual learners and visual people. So mood boards really help to kind of make your setting and your atmosphere concrete and help you articulate it better once it's in your head, getting it out somewhere. So curating these images that convey the atmosphere will help you figure out how you want to convey that atmosphere in your writing. So let me give you another example. So in case you don't know me, my book, The Siren's Mutiny, I do a lot of mood boards on my Instagram, and I do a lot of stuff like what we're going to be doing today. So I just wanted to talk through mine. And my mood board, these 3 images are pretty encompassing of what my mood boards all look like. And they are dark, they are gloomy, They have women in them who are violent, dark, all sorts of that stuff. And that's where my inspiration came from. And that's what the atmosphere I wanted my story to have. So those are the images that I'm choosing. And having these all together in one place really helps you to kind of cognizantly go through your story as you're writing it, intentionally building the atmosphere. So where did I find my inspiration for my book? And I mentioned the lighthouse earlier. That's where it started. There's this really cool lighthouse by my new house when we moved and we were exploring. And I was like, oh, that would be really cool to like set a story around. The lighthouse didn't make it into the Sirens Mutiny, but it kicked it off. So just things like that, seeing things out in the real world and thinking, oh, if I twist it this way, I can make that into this fictional place and make it fit my fantasy story. So mood boards are a really good way to help just articulate that to yourself so you can be intentional as you're building your world throughout everything. So now we're going to try it. So Melissa linked the worksheet that I built in the guide, the digital guide, and I believe in the emails. When this goes up on YouTube, we will have a link to it in the description as well. But basically, we're going to go through this exercise together, and we're going to take a real world place that we all frequent and turn it into a fantasy location that fits the atmosphere of our story. So I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. So if you need to pause me, take your time. That's totally fine. Work through this at your own pace. This is really meant to be beneficial to you, and I want it to be beneficial to you. So take this at your own pace. But first, we are going to describe your atmosphere and your setting of your story. So going through the prompts that are listed there, just take your time, jot down as much or as little detail as you want, but tell me about the atmosphere for your story. Build out your vibes. Is it dark and gloomy? Is it bright and optimistic? You don't have a wrong answer here. This is yours. This is your story. This can be done for a story that you're currently writing, a story that you're about to be writing, anything. Whatever you see it as is correct. So just go with the flow and tell me what your atmosphere is. Tell me what your setting is. Where's your story taking place? What kind of vibes does it have? What's the aesthetic? So let's do that real quick, and then we will keep on going with our workshop. Okay, so hopefully you paused me to fill all that out and really dig in as much or as little as you wanted to, because next we're going to pick a place that you frequent in your real life. Don't think this through too much. This can literally be your bedroom if you want it to be, or it can be a bar down the street, the pizza place across the city, wherever you want it to be. Just pick a place that you would be able to describe in a lot of detail. And then we're going to describe it in a lot of detail. So we're going to focus on the 5 senses and then really just what emotions are evoked when you go there. So take a second, fill it out. Again, as little as detail as you want or as much detail as you want. If you need another sheet of paper, go do it separately. That's totally fine. We want to make sure that this is good for you and useful for you. So if that's just jotting down a couple words, or if that's jotting down whole paragraphs, do whatever works for you. But I want you to take your time and describe this real world place that you visit, that you can understand, and that evokes emotion in you. So let's do that real quick, and then we'll take another little break. All right, so again, I hope you paused me because we're going to go through this, but I want you to take this at your own pace. So now we have our story atmosphere and setting, and we have our real world place. Now we're going to smush them together. So keeping that setting in mind, I want you to take that real world place and mold it and change it to fit your setting and your atmosphere. So go through the vibes. Does it need to smell different? Does it need to feel different? Does it need to evoke different emotions? Does it need dimmer lighting? Does it need brighter lighting? What are the colors that are in there now versus what was in there originally? Anything you need to change to make it fit your story, go for it. Let's change it. So again, jot down your notes, as little or as much detail as you want. And then I really want you to focus on how it's changing and what is changing, because noticing that is going to help you figure out how you can change things in the future when you're doing this, not with a workshop, but when you're doing this on your own, noticing how you change things and what aspects of the real world place that you're changing, that's really going to help you to do it faster next time. Just noticing what you're gravitating towards changing. Do you change the colors? Do you change the smell? Do you change the sounds? What are you changing and why? So just really think through that while we're going through this part of the exercise, and then pause me again and we'll get back to it. Okay, so again, I'm going to keep saying this, but I need you to pause me if you need more time, okay? This is for you. I want this to be good for you. So we did this with a random place, but I want you to just imagine like going out, exploring your city, intentionally looking for a place that you think might be able to fit into your story, and you have it right there in front of you. A lot of people have trouble with world building when they're first starting out, and it's because they don't have anything to ground it in. And one of the things that I really recommend is physically going to a place that evokes the same senses, the same feelings as the place you're writing about, and just sitting there and writing there while you're physically there. So I wrote at the beach a few times. I wrote, if I couldn't go to the beach, I had like beach YouTube videos pulled up, writing with those. But it really helps to notice those things. And when you're doing that, taking that inspiration from the real world and then twisting it to build your world in your book, it's going to make it a little bit more realistic. It's going to make it a little bit easier to describe because it's right in front of you. So now that we have gone through all of that, normally this would be our spot for our Q&A. I pulled together a few questions that I figured people would have since this is a recording. So let's just go through those. The mood boards, we're going to go back to the mood boards. Where do you get free pictures to include in mood boards? So the one thing that I would caution a lot of authors on is you don't want to just pull images from Pinterest and post them somewhere else. Putting them on your Pinterest board, that's fine as long as they don't leave Pinterest. But it's really hard to get the correct credit to give when you're pulling images from Pinterest. So I do recommend using stock photos for your mood boards if you're going to post them on like your Instagram or your TikTok or something like that. And I get mine from Canva primarily. I think Canva Pro is a fantastic investment if you can swing it. And if not, Canva, the free Canva version is just as fantastic. It has most of the images that I use, honestly, are from the free version. Very few that I use are from the pro version. So Canva primarily. Unsplash has a lot, and then Shutterstock has a pretty decent selection of free stock photos too. Do you figure out plot first or setting first? So what kind of order do you go in? I am a plotter. I have tried pantsing, and I find that if I don't at least know the ending and how generally we're going to get there, I can write forever, and then it'll never end. So I start with my characters, and my characters will usually tell me, by the time I get through fleshing out my characters and their personality traits and stuff, they'll usually tell me when and where they want things to take place. And then we will figure out a plot from there. So I usually do character, setting, then plot for how I build my stuff. But again, there's no wrong answer to do this. There's no wrong writing process. However works for you is best. So just play around with things. If you don't have a writing process yet that you like, play around with it. So try doing things in different orders. Try different outlining methods. I use Save the Cat and Romancing the Beat kind of smushed together. So try different methods for outlining. If you outline, if you don't outline, if you're a pantser, give outlining a shot. How specific do you need to get when you're describing your atmosphere and setting? So with settings specifically, I want to caution, like, you don't have to sit down and write out in 1867 in Boston, Massachusetts, yada, yada, yada. You don't have to do that. And it's really more like context clues to help build things. And with atmosphere, it's even less specific and less explicit. You really want to drop things in. So if your atmosphere is gloomy, don't say it was gloomy, make it be raining. And this goes back to show, don't tell. which can be a whole other workshop in itself. And Melissa has some great resources on her website about this specifically. So go check those out. But yeah, so I would never say you have to be uber explicit when you're describing your setting and your atmosphere, but it is very important to make it clear and understandable. And in line with that, I mentioned earlier that it's very important to ground your reader in your setting early on in the book. So a question that I hear a lot when I talk about this is, okay, how early is early? Ideally within the first page, because the more your reader sits there and is like, okay, I'm getting all this information about these characters, but where are we? It's going to feel lost and they're not going to remember the important things from the first couple pages. So if not the first page, definitely within the first chapter. If you've gone through the first chapter and you don't have your reader grounded in when and where things are happening, you're going to need to stop and back up. Now, this is not saying that this setting that you're grounding them in has to be the end all be all for the whole book, and it shouldn't be. But for the moment, at this point in time with your characters, on the first page, you need to ground your reader in when things are happening and where they're happening, so that they can follow along with the characters without having to be lost. And then finally, what other tips do I have for building unique settings? Don't try to reinvent the wheel. You're going to make it harder for yourself in the long run. And look at your genre. So if you're writing a Gothic romance, there's conventions for that. It's probably going to be gloomy. It's going to be dark. It's Gothic. So you don't have to try to like start from scratch when you're building your setting. You can use your genre conventions and then go from there as a base, and just making sure that your characters really guide it the way that's going to fit them. But you have that base with your genre convention, so use them. You don't have to start from scratch. We've got something here, and that's what readers expect from this genre. So once you find your genre, leverage those expectations. They don't have to be exactly what the reader expects every time. Like, it can be a Gothic fantasy and it can be set at a theme park, but you're going to have certain aspects for each genre that's going to tell the reader, like, this is what I'm looking for, and that's going to inform you as a writer as well. This is the genre I'm writing in, so this is kind of what I have to make sure that I'm hitting, to make sure that the readers are getting the experience they're expecting. But you don't have to stay in that box. You just have to know the box is there. So I hope that helps. And then finally, thank you guys for hanging out with me. And if you want to shoot me an email or shoot me a message on social media, here's all my links, and we'll link them in the description too. But please feel free if you want to chat about this video, this workshop, if you want to chat about anything else, if you have more questions, please feel free to reach out. I would be more than happy to talk about anything you'd like. And I just want to say thank you again to Melissa for letting me come hang out with you guys. Thank you very much.